God's Law and Why, Part 7. You shall not kill. The law is straightforward, the shortest in fact of all the commandments. As such, it should be immune from corruption. Unfortunately, some legal minds seem to have decided to twist it around. In this video, I will expose the unscrupulous practice for what it is. Additionally, I will address dishonest information written by some scribes into the Bible that has caused God so much bad publicity for the past 3,000 years. While at it, I will show a way how believers can protect themselves by showing a bulletproof strategy on how to crack down on fraudulent writings from such depraved ancient Jewish record keepers. And from there, I systematically address what killing means in the context of consciousness before nailing the whys behind the prohibition. Some people ask, if God doesn't allow killing, then how come He instructed Joshua to kill millions of people, including men, women, innocent children, and babies, as precondition for the Promised Land? This is the stuff that fuels most atheistic movements, where religion is depicted as evil and destructive. The short answer to this question is there was never such a command from God. In the case of Israelites mowing down the quote-unquote wicked, it is not a question of whether those nations deserved the sword or not. Thing is, the divine could have easily wiped out those people the way it did the Egyptians, without a single Israelite raising a sword to commit sin for which they later had to pay. Fact is, God does not even have to raise a hand against those nations. All He had to do was not to have given life to any of them in the first place. An ounce of prevention is, after all, worth a pound of cure. What does this all mean? What it means is that it does not really look like it was even God who was the one ordering the slaughter of those people. It does not matter if Joshua indeed was able to command the sun to stop for 3 days, or even if the walls of Jericho indeed crumbled at the advance of the Israelites. Miracles can never nullify God's commandment or serve as a trustworthy guide on human life and decision, except for the emotionally fanatic. The easiest people to mislead are awed and therefore worship what they hear of as miracles, rather than what the Ten Commandments clearly state. Such misguided people are bound to commit all kinds of folly because they worship what their senses impress them with and not what they know as true and pure. The Ten Commandments is a covenant, the highest law. It is like the constitution of a country, which means it cannot be superseded by any other instruction, not even an instruction from God Himself. The only way for the slaughter to be defensible is if God never used humans in the process, because humans are signatory to the covenant compelling them to obey, "You shall not kill." Most importantly, it is the peak of insanity and hallucination to imagine a God entering into a covenant with humans, then requiring the signatory humans to violate the same covenant. To anyone with the slightest common sense, it becomes increasingly obvious. The Israelites were victors in the war, wrote the Bible, and demonized nations. They attacked the way nations of today demonize those they want to immorally invade. The Jewish scribes who did it then painted themselves as a nation of saints at the expense of God. The strategy of demonizing nations as a justification for immoral invasion is used even today by countries like the United States, for example, which demonize countries like Iraq, Russia, North Korea, Iran, China, etc. In a nutshell, it is mankind's destructive signature. The crime against conscience is when God is claimed as the one ordering the slaughter and having the temerity to even record it in the Bible as something even perversely defensible. Which father, if he had 2 sons, would ask one son to punish his other son? Obviously, a son who declares to his brother, "Our dad gave me authority to punish you." He is making up stories just so he can boss and bully his brother. It is time we stop giving God all the bad press and recognize that it was the Israelite leadership and the Israelite people's greed that was at fault and not God. I would like to add in passing that the way to know which parts of the Bible is really from God and not from the weaponization of religion for greed is by testing any questionable passage in the Bible against the light of the 10 Commandments. Today, humans have modified this law to read, "You shall not murder," replacing the original "You shall not kill," justifying the action using such Bible passages as those in the book of Joshua. They likewise cite biblical rulings where death penalty was prescribed for law offenders. It does not stop here, however, and in times of war, we see the same trend where nations nullify the law and legalize killing by honoring murderers as heroes. Nations prefer the word murder to the word kill because murder is defined as illegal killing, which implies that killing can sometimes be made legitimate, a manifest absurdity and corruption of the Bible. All this is done just so societies and nations can have their promised land. Hence, humankind is simply repeating the same mistake Israel made. For God has declared, "To me belongs vengeance and recompense." Deuteronomy 32, verse 35. So, yes, the Bible indeed said in many passages that death is for such and such an offense, but it also made it clear the only one who can rightfully execute the death sentence is God alone and not man. If you really think about it, why rush? We are born to die anyway, but everyone will have to die by the hands of God, for only the giver can take away what he gave. Now that we are done tackling the aberration in today's revised law, which uses the word murder instead of kill, it is time to analyze what it means to kill. What really does it mean to kill? To kill implies depriving something of its life, which thereby necessitates a bit of comment on what life is. So what is this thing we call life? The short answer to this is that life is consciousness. Hence, the question why killing is wrong boils down to this. Why is it wrong to try to destroy consciousness? Surely, God wouldn't care to make a law about something if it neither affects Him nor us. If it is a given that we are part of creation, then killing has to infringe on the purpose of creation, which in turn should impact consciousness to become relevant. So what then is the purpose of creation? In the simplest words, the purpose is for consciousness to experience life in the increasing countless forms across the expanding universe. God, Creator, whatever you wish to call Him, dwells and experiences creation by way of consciousness. Killing negates God's right to pervade in creation, to play any role He chooses via any form He decides to create. Playing a role is just a justification for life because it is an essential ingredient in the cosmic game that creation is about. If this were the case, then given that roles play a key, then how about the vegetative or those in a coma? Those who don't seem to play any role in the world, is killing them okay then? Actually, everything in existence plays a role. If someone maintains that people in a coma play no role, then I would like to mention here that everyone in this world is virtually in a coma 1/3 of their lives, while they play roles in their dreams. And yes, even in your dreams, you participate in the cosmic game. This makes it wrong to kill a sleeping person as it is to slaughter one in a coma, for they both continue to play roles. The hardcore might argue that a person in the deepest states of sleep plays no role, and that therefore if the brain activity of a comatose is identical to such, then he should be killed. Wrong again. When you are in the deepest state of sleep, you don't exist at all, because in this state of consciousness, only God exists. It is as wrong to attempt killing God as it is to kill any role He is playing. We know today that consciousness exists even on the cellular level, operating on a dimension of intelligence far beyond human comprehension. For example, just a pin drop of DNA has enough information in it to fill a stack of books from here to the moon. What is more, every cell in an organism's body has a role to play, such as cells of the heart, others of liver or kidney, etc. And every cell has awareness of what other cells are doing. We all indirectly kill super intelligent cells such as these through emotions like anger, disappointments, fears, anxieties and worries, etc. This is actually one of the reasons why human beings pay up in the end. People who have never killed never die, because you only pay what you owe. Additionally, animal life forms have as much right to be on this earth and be alive as you and I. In a democratic, perfectly fair election, the combined votes of all species on this planet for a right to life would beat the human species vote by a landslide. Hence, killing animals for food is also a violation of the command, "You shall not kill." Today, scientists tell us that if the blood is pure and the bodily secretions pure, then the body will last indefinitely. Killing animals for food amounts to mixing their blood with ours as they get buried in our bodies. This causes our blood, therefore, to lose its purity as pure human blood. Unfortunately, there is no way to remove blood from an animal carcass. You may squeeze it dry, hang it to drip, etc., but when you take a microscope to it, you will still see veins tainted with blood. Boiling, frying, baking, and all such kinds of technology does not remove it either, because all we're doing is raising the temperature of the blood. It can change the appearance of the blood so that it looks charred or blackened, but it is still the same blood, just looking a little bit different. When faced with a question where one thing is finally allowed, though it runs contrary to an older existing law, Christ always goes back to how it was originally as an ideal. An example of this strategy is evident here. Moses permitted you to divorce your wives because your hearts were hard, but it was not this way from the beginning. Matthew 19, verse 9. In the beginning, there were only 3 commandments. Eat only fruits and seed-bearing plants, go forth and multiply, and have dominion over the earth. These commands limited man's menu and saved animals from the slaughterhouse. Animals in those days were man's companions, and human beings communicated with animals as friends do. In those days, human lifespan was close to 1,000 years. But then, something happened. Man started to crave for animal flesh in violation of the law. And with the murder of animals, humans came a step closer to murdering their fellow human beings. At last, the earth became so filled with man's violence, and the flood came to reset the world. After Noah came out of the ark, God reluctantly allowed the killing of animals for food, but warned mankind in effect. If you do this, you can only live 120 years maximum. In other words, the penalty is life for life. Man's usual 900 plus lifespan is curtailed to pay up for the animal he decides to kill.